The first part that I want to get into is the thematic connection. What are or what is the thematic idea that I found in the short story and the poem that I want to introduce to you? So, the thematic ideas and or connection that I want to introduce is the conflict between rationality and emotion. This conflict is usually overlooked by the individual. It's either because they want to hide their emotion or they want to look like they don't care and they feel detached from a certain situation that actually hurt them so much that they have that type of reaction. And even though emotion can be concealed under the guise of critical thinking, they will eventually be exposed after a moment of realization. The moment of realization will be discussed more through uh, the poem and the short story analysis. The first part that I want to get into, the first analysis that I want to get into is the short story analysis. So War, like a title, was set. The setting is during a war. It's the First World War. In a train in Italy, a group of people are on their way to meet their family members who were out on the battlefield. And the mood is definitely gloomy and dark. Anxious, they don't know if there's anything that happened to their family members or if their family members will have a chance to go back or not. There are not too many characters in the short story, so I only have one main focus that only one the character that I want to focus on is a fat, red-faced traveler who has his son pass away because of the war. So why everyone around, there are two parents who try to argue to see whose situation is worse when one has his only son out in the battlefield and the other one has two sons and both of them have to go on the battlefield. They the guy just the man just quietly listened to the conversation and then he suddenly said, "Nonsense. Do we give life to our own children for our own benefit? Do we think of the country when we give life to our children? Our sons are born because, well, because they must be born. And when they come to life, they take our own life with them." This is a very serious and rational tone. He started off by saying that uh, our, the, their children, their sons were born not because they were born out of the parents' satisfaction or expectation, but they were born because they were meant to be born. And there were no really emotions or shown during this phase. Instead of complaining like the other parents, he kept a calm and rational tone to express his thoughts. At the very beginning, he showed that he is a logical person who barely have any emotion. In this case, I would say he had absolutely no emotion. So move on. He continued his reason why the parents should not be upset when their sons go to defend the country. He continued, and when they reach 20, they are exactly what we were at our age. We too had a father and a mother, but there were so many other things as well. Girls, cigarettes, illusions, new ties, and a country, of course, whose call we would have answered when we were 20, even if father and mother had said no. At this point, he changed from talking about his sons or the parent's son, but then he talked about the parents instead. He reminded the parents that they all have been there, they all have been 20, and when they were 20, they were exactly like how their sons right now. They were no different from their sons. That if the country had called them to go to war and defend the country, they would have gone, even when their parents said no, just like their sons right now. Then he continued saying, "Why then," continued the fat man, "should we consider the feelings of our children when they are 20? So he understood and tried to think from the son's side. But he forgot to address the parents' emotion as well, which is also very important. Having a son leaving for war is not an easy situation to deal with. As the fat man said, when the sons were born, they took the parents' life with them. And I personally think this is a very ironic statement, ironic when he said that they should consider the feelings of the children when they're 20. By saying that, he disregard his emotion by constantly bringing up the reason to justify his son's death and other parents' son's death. Now, if one dies young and happy without having the ugly sides of life, the boredom of it, the bitterness of disillusion, what more can we ask from him? He continues to show that he is very logical at this point. It makes me wonder, is he talking about his experience? Where did he talk from? Where is the experience that he's talking about? What are the ugly sides of life and the boredom of life that he talk about? Maybe he found that life is ugly after he lose his son, after his son is gone, and somehow inside him he still cannot believe that. And after his son passed away, maybe he feel the boredom of life because his son has already took away his life with him when he was gone, when he was passed away. So another question that I have is it this illusion that he's talking about is actually this illusion from his son's death, that after his son's death he realized that all of the hope, all of the illusion that he's keep trying and trying to keep is gone. He hoped that his son's gonna come back after the war, but he never did. He was never able to do it. He said, everyone should stop crying. Everyone should laugh as I do, or at least thank God as I do. Because my son, before dying, sent me a message saying that he was dying satisfied at having ending his life in the best way he could have wished. That is why, as you see, I do not even wear mourning. This is so ironic because he advised everyone to laugh, to thank God when their sons are out on a battlefield that in pure danger and might not be able to come back. How can any parents do that? If they truly love their children, no parents could ever do that. But instead, he thanked God. He thanked God for giving his sons the death. No parents would be able to do that. And that makes me wonder if all of this is true. Is it true that he's actually do not even wear mourning? Or he's just trying to build a shield to protect him from the disillusion, the bitterness of this illusion? Up until this point, there's still no indication of how the man feels about his son's death, which will be explored more in the future. He shook his flight-flown coat as to show it. His livid lip over his missing teeth was trembling. His eyes were watery and motionless, and soon after he ended with a shrill laugh which might well have been a sob. The first time, this is the first time during the whole story that we actually have something mentioned about his emotion. The pure happiness that he constantly talk about is not real. We can see that through the word trembling lip, watery and motionless eye, the shrill laugh. Usually, when you fake a laugh, it's usually in the high tone. That's why the shrill laugh indicates that his laugh is fake, and he tried to make it feel real, but he went a bit too far. And it's interesting how the author mentioned that after he ended with a shrill, and soon after he ended with a shrill laugh, which might have been a sob. This means that he seemed to hide his emotion away, and if no one was around, it could have been a sob. It could have been a real sob that released all of his emotion. But he couldn't do that because everyone was around and everyone was looking at him. This was when the woman talked and she asked question. She was like, "Then is your son really dead?" The sentence is so short, but it's so direct, and it loaded with emotional weight. I'm sure at this point the woman wasn't trying to mock him or to make him remember about his pain. She just it's just pure a pure question. I feel that she's fear. She has a fear for her son too. She feared that that's gonna be the future of her son. Then the old man, too, turned to look at her, fixing his great, bulging, horribly watery, light grey eyes deep in her face. The exaggerated description of him, it's a great bulging, horribly watery eyes, show that he already have age. He's old. And all of that show that he have suffered, and he tried to suppress the pain that he went through. His eye, described as watery, suggests that he's on the verge of tears. He's so close to tears that if no one's around, it's gonna be a sob. It would have been a sob. And horribly and burgling, adding discomfort, the possibly mirroring the disturbing emotional reality he's hiding beneath his rationalizations. The way the author said deep in her face suggests that he's looking directly and intensely at the woman. And he's just not like looking at her. It's not that only. It's also that he's confronting her pain. He understands that she's fears for her son. And in doing so, he can somehow, perhaps, confront and feel for his own pain. This moment shows a crack in his previous calmness, an emotional climax where the mask of stoicism begins to slip. For some time, he tried to answer, but words failed him. He looked and looked at her, almost as if only then the silly, incongruous question he had suddenly realized that at last his son was really dead, gone forever, forever. The old man who has been so vocal about patriotic sacrifice is held now, speechless. This highlights how words are insufficient in the face of overwhelming grief. There's no word that can describe how much pain that he had to suffer at this point. His inability to speak shows that rational justification can only carry someone so far. When truly faced with loss, language fails. No words or no way of communication can express everything about how he feels about this. The repetition of looked and looked emphasized his shock and internal struggle. His gaze become way more of a processing what words cannot express. The phrase silly question is ironic. It's not truly silly. It's devastating, simple and direct. But to him it feels absurd because it breaks through the emotion defenses that he had built. This is the moment where denial, truth turns to acceptance, and the full weight of his grief finally hits him. His face contracted, become horribly distorted. Then he snatched in haste a handkerchief from his pocket and, to the amazement of everyone, broke into harrow, heart-breaking, uncontrollably sobs. The transformation from his face his face reflects intensity of his emotional collapse. The use of word horribly emphasize how raw and painful the moment is. It's not just for him, but for everyone that's witnessing it. They're all parents. They understand it. The word snatch suggests the urgency and desperation. It's a small action that conveys loss of control. He's now cannot act or cannot behave accordingly anymore because his emotion is so overwhelmed. The pain that he went through is unbearable, for sure, we all know that. He understood the philosophical arguments about sacrifice, duties, and patriotism. He repeats them over and over again. And at some point, everyone around was like, yeah, he was right, he was right. They believe him. They trust that everything that he was talking about was true. That was what he truly and deeply felt. But it does not matter that how much he try, his feelings are still true, it's still raw, and it's real. It's powerful and deeply human. And despite his effort to rationalize the death of his sons, the emotional truth could not be denied. It could not go away.